Welcome to the program. I'm Mark Imperial. This segment's being brought to you by booksgrowbusiness.com. It's the place where busy professionals get their books done to educate consumers, grow their practices, and to leave a legacy. We're doing a series of spotlights on remarkable advisors across the country. And joining me on this segment from Plano, Texas is Angie Herrington, and she's the founder of Herrington Wealth. Angie, welcome to the program.
Thanks so much for having me, Mark.
Angie, tell me a little bit about your work, and specifically, who are the types of folks that you specialize in helping?
So I do mostly retirement planning for a lot of ages, including some people who are already in retirement who have just never planned things out and don't know if they have enough money to make it like they hope to. But a lot of my clients are small business owners and young professionals, a lot of whom are in executive positions, usually in, medium-sized startups. And so they have a lot of stock options and are wondering, how do I handle this? And a few that have gotten burned by taxes, exercising too many stock options in one year. And so through friends in those companies, they all seem to find me. And so those are interesting clients to handle. And so that's sort of become a specialty.
So, Angie, you mentioned a few different challenges within your client base. What would you say are like the most common challenges that your clients seem to face? What are the biggest things on people's minds?
Well, I would say two things. One is they don't understand the tax implications of many of the things that they do, whether it's where they're saving money for retirement or, like I was saying, how they're exercising stock options and, doing too much in one year and then getting stuck with a huge tax bill that was a huge surprise. The other thing is that, we live in a culture where it's such materialistic and consumer focused, where there's peer pressure to keep up with the Joneses, but there's not peer pressure to save for retirement. And so you have a lot of people who are, as their income goes up, their standard of living goes up. And so they're in their 50s and saying, I think I should focus on saving for retirement now. But they're living at, $300,000 a year and spending all of it and maxing out their 401k maybe, but that's really not enough to maintain that standard of living. And so sometimes there's some tough conversations then.
Now, you mentioned materialism, and you made me think of, as we speak, we're right around the holidays. And of course, this recent pandemic has changed a lot of people's mindsets in what's important. Have you found that this pandemic's changed any mindsets from folks that you've spoken to? Are they still spending? Obviously, we've got shipping problems, so people are obviously spending. What have you heard?
Well, I know part of the supply chain issue has been that because everybody was quarantined down for COVID, they weren't using as many services. And so they had this extra money that they were used to spending to the last dime after, for each paycheck. And so they bought more products. And so we bought more stuff on Amazon and Walmart and every place that we could buy things online. We ate out more and just even from, Uber and that sort of things. But so the problem became that they got used to buying a lot more stuff. And now that they start to feel comfortable going back to the doctor and the dentist and things like that, now there's a shortage. And so they're saving less for retirement and thinking less about the future. And that becomes a huge challenge.
I can imagine now because personally, you get this pent up demand. So it's like we're at home for the past year or so, and we're thinking, what makes you feel better? But shopping. So people are shopping
Right.
online, and then when the country opens back up, it's like pent up demand, cabin fever. Let's get out there, let's spend. So I can imagine that gets a little out of control. So that's one pitfall, obviously, overspending, increasing your lifestyle, spending every dime that you make. Are there any other big like mistakes or pitfalls that you see people make commonly with their money?
I think one of the biggest pitfalls I see is as people's income goes up, because the IRS is saying, here's how much you can save for retirement in your 401k and in your IRA. And so they'll think, okay, so if, so I'm doing great if I'm maxing out my 401k and I'm maxing out my IRA. But if I'm living at $350,000 a year, that doesn't equal a $350,000 a year lifestyle in retirement. And so they don't realize, for me to maintain the standard of living, either I'm going to have to lower my standard of living in retirement, which I'm not expecting usually, or I'm going to have to lower my standard of living now and put more money towards retirement in other vehicles to make my lifestyle kind of lower it to maybe a $200,000 a year. And then that I can maintain into retirement.
That's a great insight, and people are in for a rude awakening, I'd imagine, when they do that
Sometimes.
habit. So, you know, Angie, what inspired you to even get into this field and help people with their finances? How did you get started?
Well, I actually started off at Accenture as a programmer, and over time, I got into a piece of what was then Arthur Andersen that was doing, it was called Financial and Commodity Risk Consulting. And so we were doing a lot of consulting with energy traders. And I started to see how interesting this was, that, it was not, it was all paper trading. There wasn't actual product moving, and it was just a financial, game. And I had started investing on my own on the side through help with some friends, just literally started an E-Trade account and self-educated. And so then when we were living in a small town in East Texas, towards the end of when I had been home with kids for a little while, looking for something to do professionally that, that job didn't exist in the town we were in. And I saw a listing for Edward Jones, and I thought, I have always wanted to do investing. I love the math side of it. I'm kind of a closet math geek. And that kind of sent me on a trajectory where, Edward Jones was a great starting ground, great training program, helped me get my licenses, and really set me up for success. And then as I moved on and we moved back to Dallas, that, eventually starting my own, where I really wanted to be in an environment where there were not sales quotas, where I could spend as much time as I needed to with each client, because everybody's situation is so different, and not having the pressure of, okay, wait, I got to get 10 more of you in this week, wrap it up. And somebody looking over my shoulder saying, wait, you need more. And I'm like, well, but this client really needs more time. They've got a complicated situation. We need to meet a few times, and I need to do some analysis behind the scenes and make sure we're doing the right thing. And so it led me to just starting my own and getting my certified financial planner certificate to make sure I really understood the implications of all of the recommendations I was making.
Now that's terrific, Angie. You mentioned like some clients take a lot more planning and work than others, and I bet a lot of people out there either put this off, don't feel it's that important, or they get overwhelmed by just trying to find information online to try to do it themselves. Are those like some big misconceptions people have? What are the big myths or misconceptions that keep people from being successful in planning their retirement?
I think they rely sometimes too much on Social Security, thinking, if they're lower, more average income earners, closer to the 75 to 100,000 a year, they think, okay, Social Security I'll have. So if I'm putting, $200 a month into my 401k and $50 a month into my IRA, at least I'm doing something, but not realizing that in retirement, they will practically be living at the poverty level. And depending on, that's estimating the future value of the poverty level. But it really is not having somebody really do the math to see how can you maintain your current standard of living into retirement, and then what does that mean you need to be saving every year, and invest it at a certain level of, aggressiveness in the market without too much risk.
So
That's
these
their
folks,
biggest. It's just not letting somebody do the math, letting a professional do the math.
they do need a
That
financial
seems to be the
Sherpa because
biggest
that
risk.
is like a full-time job trying to keep up with all that information, and nobody's got time for that. They have a business to run or something they should be doing instead.
Exactly.
So,
Right.
Angie, before I ask you my last question, for folks that know they need to get their financial house in order, but they just don't know where to start, what would you say are some of the biggest things they should consider when choosing an advisor to work with?
I'll tell you the top things is you definitely want someone who is charging fee based, meaning they're going to charge you 1% or less of the value of the assets that they are managing. So what that means is that, so like the way I do it, you can buy a stock, a mutual fund, an annuity, all of those, I get paid 1%. So I have no incentive to sell you one product over another. I'm not, I don't have to sell any one brand of investments because I'm independent. And so I think finding someone who's independent, meaning they're not working for a large brokerage house, finding someone who's fee based, which includes everything they sell, needs to be under that umbrella, and finding someone who has their CFP, their certified financial planner certificate, so that they know the tax implications and the estate implications of every recommendation they're giving you, and they can explain it to you so you never leave confused.
Sage advice. I appreciate that. Angie, for folks that are listening now that would like to speak with you, how do they find you, connect with you, and learn more?
Sure, they can go to my website, that's harringtonwealth.com, which is HERRINGTON. They can also call us at our Plano office. Our number here is 214-509-8724. So either way, we're glad to meet with them and do a free consultation and see how we can help them.
Angie, this has been terrific. You've been great. I really appreciate you taking the time and sharing your insights with my audience today, and I wish you continued success for you and for all of your clients.
Thank you so much.
That was Angie Herrington, the founder of Herrington Wealth out of Plano, Texas. And this segment's been brought to you by booksgrowbusiness.com. It's the place where busy professionals get their books done to educate consumers, grow their practices, and to leave a legacy. That's all for now. I'm Mark Imperial, and thanks for joining me.